What's up, beautiful people? It's your girls, Leanne. It's the Heart-Based Community Podcast Series number 8. Today, I have with me one of my divine friends that I met on Facebook, but we're definitely soul sisters from a past life. Both receptive, both doing amazing work on ourselves and spreading as much love as we can. Sarah Curley, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, love.
You're very welcome. So Sarah's out in New York. She's on Facebook as Sarah. What's your name on Facebook?
Sarah Bloomfield Curley, but you could just call me Sarah Curley. Yeah.
Okay. So she is blooming with love. And today,
Yes.
today our podcast is all going to be about normalizing woohoo. So we've come together through time and space to find each other. And we're both doing amazing things for ourselves and for the communities. But there's a lot of inner work that we're doing too as divine feminine. And so we understand each other and we want to be able to hold space for any viewers that have a chance to see this, to come in to hear more about the importance of normalizing woohoo. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lovey.
Again and again. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to understanding woohoo, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm a trance channel and a medium, and I activate and speak light language, like weakened dormant light codes within people. And I had a spontaneous awakening probably in 2014, 2013. I believe I had a Kundalini awakening. I was doing a lot of energy work, learning about spiritual development, meditation, and I awakened very spontaneously. So it took me many years to process and understand my gifts, my channeling ability, my trance channeling, my light language, my knowing that I was a divine being and understanding galactic beings and all of that. That all came in very quickly. So, I was experiencing the duality of being human, Sarah, trying to struggle and understand what that all meant. And then coming into really knowing the truth of who I was and really trying to process that. And it took me many years to really awaken. And in that time, I was always immersed in the spiritual community because that's where I felt like I belonged. And I came to understand pretty quickly that there is a sort of, ungrounded kind of behavior in some parts of the spiritual world. Some people, can be seek out spirituality to heal trauma, but then they'll kind of stay in that place instead of going one step further and seeking to ground and balance themselves out. They kind of just stay in the place of trying to fulfill themselves with some kind of missing and like feeling empty, and they become kind of spiritually addicted. And I feel like I always wanted to maintain a sense of groundedness in the spiritual world. And I guess I came to understand woohoo or woo-woo as that sort of ungrounded behavior, right? It's kind of, and it kind of gives, I think it kind of gives spirituality like a bad name because we're not seeking to leave, right? We're seeking to gain wisdom that's already within. And I think woo-woo is kind of like being very ungrounded in space and detached from, your shadow or your own inner healing that has to be done. It's kind of just like trying to find an imbalanced way of trying to find, happiness. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Keep opening that up, because I really feel whenever anybody hears this word woo-woo, they're probably thinking somebody's going through some amount of spiritual awakening, but they haven't found an integration process yet, or they haven't found an ability to integrate their 3D version, which is more your normal person before you have, you have a version of yourself before you go through this new language that opens up within you. And so then it's like woo-woo is over here, and then you have this, and then how do you bring it all together?
Right.
Right.
Which is kind of the journey that I've been on. And I guess woo-woo, it's just ungrounded, right? It's just ungrounded kind of seeking of fulfillment that is detached from normalizing spiritual work. Like, hey, like I speak light language, and to some people that could be considered very woo-woo, like, oh, she's channeling some kind of crazy language, right? But I really do feel, as I'm sure you feel, part of my purpose here is to normalize 5D concepts, right? To normalize these things, like that's really who we are. I'm channeling a multi-dimensional expression of myself, and that's normal. It's just abnormal to the third dimensional world because it doesn't fit in to the, I guess, the perceptions of what normalcy is. But I really feel as light workers, we're here to redefine normalcy and to ground these concepts and to, I guess, make people, not make people, but help people see them in a more grounded way. So instead of, oh, like I'm channeling aliens, blah, 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 you know, I'm channeling an aspect of my divine self, and we all have that ability, right? We all do, not just me, you know. So I hope that's making sense.
I feel so good. I feel so good that we can have these breaking conversations, because I like the idea that when you come into understanding, you're here to serve and you're here to be of contribution to the change of consciousness on the earth, is that you come in thinking, you know, you're this child of your parents. And then you go through what your parents make you believe what you are. But even through that, you're hearing things of your inner self as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. And that woo-woo, you know, is always there. And then we have the aspects of our maturity that allows us to say, okay, well, normalizing woo-woo would be making a business with woo-woo so that people have a safe container to enjoy flow.
Yeah. I think the bringing up the childhood thing is a good point, because when we're children and we have spiritual, a lot of people shut that off, right? They shut off those gifts because it doesn't make sense to their parents, or it doesn't fit in the paradigm of what's normal. So they feel abnormal. So they feel like they have to hide who they are. And a lot of light workers, including myself, have had, you know, traumatic past lives of being persecuted for being woo-woo, you know, for being alive and a light in our gifts, and for speaking our divine truth. So it can be, I guess, I don't know, frightening for some people to out themselves. But again, I think it's our job, those of us who feel confident or who are, you know, walking that journey of becoming more of who we are, to hold the light for those people, to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to show who you really are, to say, I'm a medium, I'm a that. And I think, don't you feel like now things have shifted with that too? Like there's a lot more people who are opening to that, where maybe like 10 years ago, it wasn't as much. I mean, I know.
Look at COVID, right? So COVID happened vibrationally. It was also, whether it's in a 3-dimensional aspect or it's in a 5-dimensional aspect, there are light codes that have been coming through my body since the world stopped. And then the energy, and I really can see how birth, death, old age, and disease are all attributes for our ascension alone in our body. So even the transformation of what's really happening in time and space, for good and for bad, has always been happening to humans. It's just us really, are we finding that woo-woo connection to our soul to be able to be in a moment and say, okay, well, you know, everybody's comfortable either taking a vaccine or not. That's their place with understanding their inner woo-woo. And that could be science for them. That's totally perfect for them. And it may not be perfect for somebody else, because the light codes in somebody else said, hey man, I can handle this. Right. Yeah. So I still feel like it's the multidimensional aspect of all of us coming into the higher realms of woo-woo and integrating it. It's each human in their time and space individually.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a unique path, right? And nobody can force you to embrace that or awaken. You have to choose that. And I think you're right with COVID. I think the world stopped and allowed people to see alternatives, and that we don't have to live our lives in the grind of 9 to 5, that there is more out of life, and to seek and search and find those things. And when the world stops, right, you have no choice. You can, that was, I guess Source kind of did force that, but it's a blessing, right? It's an opportunity to silence everything so you can be comfortable in your own silence, right? And I think most of people's problems comes from avoiding being comfortable in silence, right?
So
I'm
Sarah,
listening.
let's talk about you and a little bit about, let's go back to a place where woo-woo became normal for you, and then talk
Okay.
about how you integrated into your life, into your purpose.
Yeah, yeah, wow. It's always hard to recall the exact moment, but I do remember. I mean, I was lucky enough. I had a grandmother who was a medium, so I think I was always kind of exposed to that. But really, I guess when I started speaking a language that I had no idea of what it meant, and it was just coming out of my mouth, I think that's when it really became new woo woo became normal for me, because then I started really going on this quest, I guess, this breadcrumb trail of trying to process and understand what is this and where does all this come from? And like, on one hand, I can channel. On the other hand, I'm like, what the heck is happening to me? So I think I think that awakening really put me on that journey to self-discovery of trying to process what light language was, where it was coming from, why I was able to do this and not really understand it. And trance channeling, having something take over your body, but really understanding that that's another aspect of me, that also, um, so I guess, yeah, the gift of awakening to that's really what helped me normalize it, start that process. And then being a channel and having channeling groups for people and having people watch me channel, that was really, that really immersed me into, I guess, understanding my insecurities and my fears of being judged and getting over all of that and being just like thrown into all of that. And then that just kind of became my career. Like I did go back to school for social work during that time. So right when my trans channeling came in, I had already made the commitment to go back to school to be a social worker. So it was interesting because I had the two aspects, the one like very, mental 3D kind of aspect of learning all of that, the education, and then the spirit, and just being on the journey to find out how the two integrate. So I think I'm lucky in that way where I can ground those abilities and make them relatable for people. I don't know if I'm sidetracking the question by answering it.
No, that's
But
good. And then,
yeah,
I think some things we can talk about that are important is woo woo and the feeling and the experience of what really happens when we look within, because there's things that happen that call us naturally to meditation. There are things that happen that the force of source energy is so magnificent around us that calls us to sit, and time feels like it stops and we're there observing, and then the messages come through, and then that's what
yeah,
makes normalizing woo woo normal, because it's a
yeah.
natural tendency of source to call us.
Yeah, that's true. That's beautifully said. Because I think when you're in that state, that is that's the real normal, right? When you're in that blissed out, when I channel, and I remember too in the beginning, connecting to those higher vibrations, because everything is vibration. And when you're channeling and you're connecting to divine energy, it's very high frequency. So when you're bringing that energy into you and you're feeling like the resistance of the lower human frequencies, and then that bright light's coming in and it's kind of touching a light on those darker aspects and you're healing from the inside out. And then you feel that love and you feel it so much and so intensely that all you can do is cry. You realize and recognize and understand, oh, that's who I really am. That pure source of love, that's who I really am. This other stuff, it's just an illusion to help me return to know that that's who I really am, right? So I think you're right. And I think low points in our lives kind of, I don't know, put us on that path, right? To seek out meditation, to seek out answers, to seek out like, who am I really? Like I remember having those moments, right? Like, who am I?
Mm.
And that's when we find those answers. But definitely feeling that love there's nothing like that. And knowing that that's who you really are. That's one gift I wish that I could give to everybody.
Well, how we get there, and I'd like to shed light on that just because I feel we're coming here to normalize something, and both of us are here with divine gifts. So one gift that I could offer, and you can offer one right after I talk about it, would be my greatest gift on my journey of all the methodologies that I've done is knowing that we need methods in order to understand when the mind can slow down, because the methods that we use actually help the body. So when the body is not feeling good, we move the body and then we come out of that uncomfortable place. Then there's another method where we'll sit and we'll watch the breath, and then the mind slows down. And then we're an observer of some flow of what we call energy just moving to and through our body, but the mind slows down. So we're just the observer, right?
Yeah.
So having methods and talking about methods is really the aspect of where we take this void of nothing into creativity, and that aspect of transforming into gratitude with life, right? So maybe shed some feelings on methods that work for you and things that you would talk about.
I love that. I love methods. Yeah, right. Tools, ways to incorporate practices into your everyday life that I think we as human beings need reminders. We need constant reminders. So if you can give yourself time in your life, make space for reminders. What's going to give you those reminders? And one for me is that everything is vibration. Everything is energy. So when I'm in those places, right, those low places, worry places, whatever, fear places, for me, a reminder that as everything is energy helps me understand, okay, I just have to shift my vibration right now. That's all. I don't have to solve my problem. I don't have to fix my circumstance. I don't have to, all I have to do is feel good and change my vibration. So what can I do to change my vibration? What can I do to make me feel good? And that, I mean, Abraham talks about that a lot, like making feeling good a priority. And that's really something that seems so, simplistic, but it's huge. If you could just recalibrate to feeling good, you're changing your vibration and you're able to become more inspired because you're not in that longing place of like desperation and trying to force something. You're in a more open space to just receive. So it's all about just, reminding yourself that my job is to feel good. And that gets lost. Like that's put on so many people's last on their to-do list, So if you could take away one thing, it's understanding your job is to feel good and knowing awareness when I need to change my vibration. Oh, I'm not feeling good right now. And essentially this is another huge thing too. Everything is love, right? That's the truth of everything. So if that's the truth, that's the one unifying truth, and everything else is just a fractal or an illusion, then my job is to return to love, right? And return to truth. So when I'm feeling yucky, I know that I'm an illusion. I'm not in my truth. So what can I do to get back, right? My truth.
So good. So what are some things that you do in the morning and at night for yourself?
Affirmations. I love affirmations. I just listen to them and I say them. I listen to mantras. I listen to frequency in the morning. I close my eyes. I have a gratitude prayer. It's just simple. You don't need anything formal, just calling attention to, I'm so grateful. I love doing that in the morning. I sit in the sun, I feel the sun on my face. I say something I'm grateful for. And I listen to affirmations and mantra, and I journal. I love journaling. I think it's so important to just write down your thoughts. For me, it makes me feel like when I write something down, I consecrate it. And it's, it's from my head to my hand, and the hand's an extension of the heart, right? And so I love journaling. I love writing in the morning. Stretching, yoga feels great. Moving the body, right?
Yeah.
So important to move the body, right?
I love how you're speaking from the observer aspect, because I keep coming back and I would think, well, what are viewers going to be watching when they hear us? How are they feeling about what we're saying? And then we come back to like, how do we normalize woo woo? Is normalizing and integrating the gratitude of all these little practices throughout your day to keep those other moments, when you're getting interrupted with a thought or an old pattern or
Yes.
fear or pain,
Yeah.
or a life unknown, sudden clash of thunder where, somebody dies in your family, or, COVID happens and somebody gets really sick. Like, we really need to think about the impact of life, and why we need to normalize woo woo is because we come into that flow state. Why do we
Yeah.
do these methods is in order to stay in flow so that we're observing through the good and bad and not over
Yes.
identifying, right?
Not over identifying and not over attaching and becoming less reactive, right? I was watching, I love Sadhguru, and I've thought this before, and I watched a clip and I was like, yes. And he was saying, when someone else gets you to react, you become a slave to them, because and you become a slave to anything that you're dependent upon for happiness, right? And that thing is outside of you, so you have no control over it. But you do have control over your inner world. So all these tools that we're talking about and normalizing woo-woo essentially is just getting a grasp on that. And what can you do to maintain peace, harmony, alignment, and balance in your own inner world? So essentially you become unshakable. Or, hey, this could happen. And like you said, this thunder crash could happen and I could still be like, I'm okay. And not everybody wants that, right? Like, who doesn't want that,
I think that's the greatest aspect of normalizing woo woo, because myself, the more that I meditate and the more that I use these methodologies, my life in a reflection, even being a single mom, like, I have so many other things where I continue coming back into this state, into this place. And then I understand compassion for where everybody else is learning and growing. And then finding that place of, the abundance of flow. And we can talk about the abundance of flow, even go into a little bit of, astral projection, astral traveling, watching the breath before you go to bed, sitting in meditation and connecting and being available for downloads with, other dimensions that exist from within, and then looking and studying without. There's a lot to this. There's a lot to being an evolved woo-woo being, integrating that every day, 24 hours a day, and making life a meditation.
Yes, I think you're right about opening to receive and allowing yourself to be a receptor for a source. And that essentially, I think, is what abundance really is. When you're attuned to the place within you that's open to receive the source of all that is. And when we block that with fear, with worry, with control. But when we surrender to that, we surrender to receive. And it's important to learn how to receive. And how do we do that? Yes, meditation, right? Practicing stilling the mind and understanding those concepts too, because I think they're misunderstood, right? Receiving, surrender, they're very misunderstood in our current society, right? It's like, so I think understanding that it's okay to let go. And how do you do that in your life? Are you creating space? Are you creating space to channel, to receive? And that's why I love light language, because that's my practice in the morning when I sit there and I open to journal, or like I'm open to receive, and I'm making that an important part of my life.
Is there any light language that you want to share? You think you could share anything in that way?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Do you want me to set an intention or just whatever?
Sure. Be yourself and set an intention. Teach us something.
Okay. So the intention will be to receive a newer form of communication, or to receive a newer code of light. Yeah, yeah, it's nice.
I can see it like on my third eye, just like,
yeah, that's, sort of, it changes, right? Whenever we set an intention, it's a different I really enjoyed that. That's and the beautiful thing about it for those of you who are watching and for you is you don't have to logically understand what's being said. You just take in the energy because your soul knows and it's received that way. Because I get a lot of questions about what are they saying? What is it saying? What does it mean? And there's not always a literal translation. I don't know if you felt what you felt from
Yeah, I
that.
could feel the joy and the laughter. And it reminded me like when well, today I had a connection with the Hindu gods today, but it's like our bodies are awakening more, we're doing more of the work. And the more that we're doing the work, there's different amount of receptivity that we're tapping into, really depending on the times and the circumstance of our soul's growth, of our internal work, but our offering to contribute, right? And so I see what it was reminding me of two other aspects of the dimensions, like when I had the Arcturian portal open for me, and it just opened and I saw like the multi shape shifting of these beings, and I'm allowing myself to allow that to be present in my reality and in my astral travels. So I think that this is where normalizing woo woo comes in for people is, what do you want to hold a container for? And what kind of happiness do you want to enjoy too? So these two things is holding a container for woo woo and normalizing it, and then our personal enjoyment, because we're here to be joyful.
Yes. Yeah. You're here to be joyful. You're here to play, to laugh, to have fun, and not forget that, not to take things too seriously, which I can do, it happens to us, but we need reminders again to be light and to laugh. A lot of times when I channel the Ascendant Master, Divine Being, whoever's coming in, they're funny.
Yeah.
They make jokes,
Yeah.
and you're like, and part of it is to get people to laugh because laughter raises our vibration, right? So yeah, definitely true.
So let's talk a little bit before we end this. I think it's a really good thing. We're normalizing woo woo, friends. And we're talking about a lot of topics that may also help you in your moment to become more comfortable with normalizing your woo woo. And please make sure you click like and click share and add to this feed, because we're just growing this network and we're growing this YouTube. But there's so much with the Ascendant Masters interesting. Well, how do we discover that? For me, I discovered it naturally by being inclined to feeling and then being inclined to seek. How would you talk about your journey with Ascendant Masters?
Yeah, I think just creating that invitation to also reconnect, because also understand that they are you and you are them, right? So they're one with you. You're a part of each Ascended Master, each angel, each being. That's something I learned in my spiritual practice, my channeling practice as well. Like Mary, Jesus, Archangel Michael, any being you could possibly think of, they are you. You're one with them. So when you kind of create that invitation to reconnect with the part of you that is that, I think it's a journey to remember instead of approaching it from, I need to worship them, or, like they're separate from me. It creates more of a space of like, no, I just need to remember the part of me that remembers them. And does that help? Make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And my little adding here, I'm coming back to the mirror reflection. So we're having a chance to find each other. You're in New York, I'm in British Columbia. And then we have significant amount of our own empty vessel receiving. And then even when we connect, we're also receptive to each other's growth of things within me that are coming into you. And things that are within you coming into me. And so normalizing woo woo, friends, is also remembering that we are the collective connected, and that we have the ability to be sensitive and receptive to each other. And that's why we're here to heal each other, because the more that we do our work and the more that we go into our light, and then the more we're normalizing this woo woo language, we have the ability to see we are all one.
Oneness.
Yeah.
That's the age of Aquarius, right? No more separation, oneness, and peeling back all the layers of really, really understanding what oneness is. Because if I judge you, I'm judging myself. Nothing is outside of you. We're all one.
And to finish off, and one more thing with having the ability to understand that it's within you, my reminder to everybody is your practice that you're doing. The deeper that you're doing it, you just have the ability to be deep, and you have the ability to feel deeper. And so where you're being naturally called through, just like with Sarah or myself, and maybe how I would approach meditation or how she would, or how we both have our individualities, is to truly allow yourself to remember, yes, you're a part of the collective. Yes, you're part of the oneness. And yes, the method that is allowing you to call you deeper, just die in it a little bit more, be more total involved, and allow yourself to transform into your next moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, to have that death is a big part of it, and it is it's like a rebirth. It's a death and a rebirth, letting go of the old aspects of you that don't serve you anymore, right? And ascending and rising into who you really are. And it's so beautiful because it can be so unexpected and sometimes a little scary, but amazingly beautiful, because miracles come from the unknown, right? That's where all the miracles are, in the void of the mother, of the womb of creation. And yeah.
So good to be with you.
Yeah.
So viewers, we've started the first woo woo. It's the beautiful Heart-Based Community Podcast. This is number 8. We just took abundance into our moment. We spoke about many things that you may have questions for. So please feel free to reach out and DM Sarah Curley or myself. And we're here to serve, we're here to love, and we're here to contribute.
Yay.
Anything you want to leave with, Sarah?
No, just sending love to all of you. That's all.
Okay, beautiful goddess. Thank you for showing up today, and keep shining.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Namaste.